Hello there. I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico. Welcome. This is New Mexico History in 10 minutes. Fray Marcos de Niza headed south in 1539 after seeing a community of native people that he thought had a city of gold, and he went south to report. He told the officials down in New Spain, Nueva España, that there's people up there to convert and to put to work and to turn into taxpayers and citizens, subjects of the Spanish Empire. He also said there's mineral wealth up there. So as you can imagine, the Spaniards are ready. They're going to mount an expedition to come up to what was then Terra Incognito, unknown land, and see what they could find. But before we get to that, I want to spend this episode talking about the Pueblo people, the first New Mexicans. These folks have been here for thousands and thousands of years already by the time the Spanish arrive in the 1500s. And they're a strong, proud people with unique cultural attributes, and they live in a fantastic place, right? Well, they come up here around 15,000 years ago when prehistoric people crossed the Bering Straits to start populating North America and South America. And they're nomadic, hunters and gatherers, but they start to really settle and develop their own cultures. They have their Cochise people, you have the basket makers, but when it really starts to come together is around the 1300s. While Europe is going through the High Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the people of New Mexico are establishing themselves at places like Chaco and Mesa Verde. And they develop and evolve a highly rich culture. If you've ever been out to Chaco or Mesa Verde, you can feel the intensity of the place. These places were economic centers, dense population areas, and spiritual centers. You could tell by the massive kivas. When you're in Europe and you go into a massive cathedral, you go, wow, people worshipped here for generations and generations. Well, the same thing with these folks. It's very awe-inspiring. So they're there, and they're trading with people in the south from what's now Mexico. We know that. There were trading centers, north, south, east, west. They had a highly developed sense of studying the stars, and it's just quite impressive. But we have to understand that by about the 1400s, something happens at Chaco, and we're not sure, but the area is abandoned, and these people head east and they head south, and they establish themselves in different communities. We don't know how many there were, but there were a lot of them. In the mountains, on the mesas, along the big river, which will later be called the Rio del Norte and then the Rio Grande. But this is what happens by the 1500s, and it's the Pueblo world. It's the world that the Spanish will eventually come into contact with in the mid-1500s. So today, what we have as far as the Pueblos go is 19 Pueblos essentially, and then you have Isleta del Sur in El Paso, Texas, but that happens later on. But essentially 19 Pueblos that span north near what's now Taos. We have a Pueblo in Taos, and we have Okeawinge in the north. These are northern Pueblos. In the east, you had Pecos, Picuris, those Pueblos. To the west, Acoma, and to the south, Isleta, just south of present-day Albuquerque. And it's fascinating because they're not just one kind of people. They're very diverse, interesting cultures, much like what you see in Spain. They don't speak Indian like a lot of people thought in the 1800s and 1900s. They have their own languages. They have three language groupings, Kurisan, Zunian, and Tanuan. And within those, five dialects, Zuni, Keres, Tiwa, Tewa, and Towa. So think about that. It's like Spain, where people speak Spanish, yes, but they actually speak a lot of other languages like Catalan, Andalus, the Basque people speak Euskera, they speak Gallego in Galicia, of course, Portuguese in Portugal and Iberia. And so it's very diverse in New Mexico, just as it is in Spain. So I want you to think about that, because this is the world that's coming together in the 1500s. And also, we need to think about this. There are other native communities in New Mexico besides the Pueblo. You have Apache groupings, Mescalero, Fort Sill. You have different groups. You have Navajo people. So it's a mix. And it's interesting. When the Spanish start to arrive, sometimes we think, well, it's just Pueblo people and Spanish people clashing and coming together in the 1500s and 1600s. But guess what? There are also Comanche people coming at that time. Apache, Navajo, you have the Hopi up in what's now northeast Arizona. They're also part of the story. And horses really change things too for everyone. The Spanish bring horses. Some of them escape. They escape into the mountains. The horses do, or some of the native peoples would take some of the horses. But what happens is these horses change the native peoples too, because at first they probably ate them, didn't taste too bad, but they start seeing that the Spanish ride these animals, and they're strong animals. They are fast, powerful, and the Comanche especially become formidable horse riders and warriors, much like their Spanish counterparts in Europe and the Muslim riders of Arabia. So this is what's happening. The Pueblo world is a highly developed, sedentary civilization that is starting to get encroached upon by Spanish people from the south and native groups, nomads, native nomads from the east, from the west, from all directions. And so this happens and really changes things. But I just want you to keep that in mind, because what happens in 1540 is that Francisco Vasquez de Coronado is a wealthy Spaniard south in New Spain, and he is the person who will come up to New Mexico with Spanish soldiers, Native American warriors, and they're coming up here, and it's going to change things forever for the Pueblo people. So stick around. Next episode, we're going to get into that first expedition to find wealth, human and mineral, in New Mexico for Spain's growing empire around the world. Thank you for being here. Hasta luego.